Your host, Joe Cristiano.
Change. Change is uncomfortable. I wish I found change to be a comfortable experience. I would probably be a better person today. I not only would be a better person today, but I would have learned much of what I know now to be true many years ago. Probably when I was young. When I rejected about everything, because when I was young, I knew everything. The rest of the world just had to catch up.
I bet.
You know that.
I bet so.
You know that, and I'll bet everyone identifies with that. Now, this evening, there are a couple of subjects I need to touch on. Unfortunately, they are very, very risky subjects. They're sensitive, and if misunderstood, it could very, very likely mean this will be my last broadcast. And I mean that sincerely.
Really?
I mean that sincerely. People
I need a job,
do
Joe.
not. I know that. I have my entourage here. You guys, give these guys the pages. What do you call it? Classified. They're going to need a job.
Yeah.
But seriously, and when I say that, because without saying it, we will have no change. As I repeat myself every single week, I do not go through day by the daily minutia of the news and then criticize it or expound on it. To me, that is worthless, because we know whatever is happening, it is not happening for your good. When the government does something, we know it's not for your good. So let's put that to rest. But I think what we need to do is learn, all of us, including myself, think more clearly about what is going on, so each one of us individually as well as collectively can take a path to position ourselves to protect ourselves, our family, our friends, and our community. It's not very easy. Now, I'm going to criticize, in a way, a fellow talk show hosts. Now, I don't mean that to get into a talk show talk war, and I don't mean that at all. But it really bothers me when so many talk show hosts integrate facts, logic, and religion. Folks, you can't have it both ways. Religion is a belief. Facts are facts. They don't mix. Let me give you an example. And I'm not going to mention the talk show host, because, quite frankly, this person is very successful. I enjoy listening to him. He has a lot of good information to disseminate. And it's not a matter of personalities. I don't want to get there. But I hear this from so many. And they just take a religious position and then et al. It does not work. I'll give you an example. He had an excellent broadcast, and at the end he said, and here, folks, is a problem. He said, people believe in America. This is our problem now. I want you to think about it. This is our problem. Think about this as our problem and your problem. People believe in America. The problem is our government does not. Good night. Now, quite frankly, where does that leave you? And I'm being critical, not to be critical of the talk show host, but I hear this so often. We hear words that sound so comforting. We take them, we ingest them, we internalize them, and it allows our thinking to go dormant. Because once we say that, it's a cop-out. We say, well, can't do anything about it. It's that government. Government doesn't believe in the people. Let's go for another beer, Bob. That's not where it should stop. That's where it should start, folks. This really annoys me, because I hear this in different ways. I can give 20 examples, which I will not do. And I don't mean to be critical of talk show hosts who, personally, I think are a lot more erudite, a lot more intelligent, a lot more successful, and better spoken than I am. But please, guys, could we please leave, if we are going to preach, if we're going to preach one thing, let's be logical. If we're going to be logical, be all the way. Now, just think of that sentence. People believe in America. What the heck is that supposed to mean? Could anyone call 855-866-1170? Tell me what that means. What do you mean, believing in America? What is it? How do you define America? Oh, I believe in the mountains, the trees, the time zones. What are you talking about? It's just inane. It sounds good. I hate stuff that sounds good because you know it's wrong. Now, I don't believe in America because I have no idea what I'm believing in. Now, if you ask me if I believe in our form of government the way it's being executed, the answer is heck no, and I don't. That's specific. I do not believe in our current form of government. I believe in the form of government that was instituted when this country was founded. Now, we should say that. Be clear. And then they say, well, the government does not believe in America, does not believe in the people, does not believe in America. Let me clarify that. The people in America should do for the people in America. They should believe in themselves and what they are doing. By virtue of their actions, they will do well for America. Politicians do well for themselves. And the only way they can do well for themselves is accept money from lobbyists, because otherwise they'll never get reelected, right? Which means they are slaves of the pharmaceutical industry, the meatpacking industry, you name it. They become the slaves of those particular special interest groups. And then they will do what's in their best interest at your expense. Now, I wish we would say that rather than saying, oh, they don't believe in the people of America. Be specific. And too often we take a religious truism and we throw it in, sort of make it sound good. Please, I have nothing against religion. Don't get me wrong. Don't say Joe's against religion. He wants to throw God in the trash. Don't go there. But we need to separate this so we can think clearly. You know that I come from the planet Zorg. Everyone knows that. And you know, on the planet Zorg, as soon as you start thinking non-critically and speaking illogically, you get thrown off the planet. Where do you go? Well, they put you on a space module. Bingo, up in the air you go. And they land you on a place called planet Earth. You see, we, in fact, folks, are the insane asylum for planet Zorg. I'm a Zorgite. I admit it. I have a bunch of wise guys in the studio today. That's our national. You know, that's the national anthem. You know that.
I was about to say that sounds like the national anthem of Zorg.
Yeah. Yeah, they really enjoy what I'm talking about. You can tell that. But sit down, would you please? I get, a bunch of clowns over here. Clowns, I got to dress them up next week. But you understand what I mean. I heard another broadcast. He goes on and then he starts quoting the Bible, chapter, verse. Please, would you please? Not that I don't think the Bible's a good book or wrong or anything like that, but would you please just stay with the facts? Don't say, well, because Matthew said. We don't know who Matthew is. We don't know if he said it. We don't know if you interpret. You don't know which book are you taking it from. But then we justify everything and anything. And we want to know why we're at each other's throats. Because none of us can be on the same plane. It's like having a mathematical problem and having two different formulas, and trying to come to the same solution. Ain't going to happen. Now, I'll tell you what really bothers me. Memorial Day is coming up. Here we go again. What happens on Memorial Day? We hear ad infinitum about those who have sacrificed their life for our freedom.
The ultimate sacrifice.
The ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. Now, I have a problem. The government loves to use Memorial Day as a poster child for obedience. In other words, because they sacrificed their lives, we must honor them, which means we should honor what they have done, which means we should give righteousness to the government in the wars that they are fighting. I don't think so. Now, believe me, I totally sympathize with people who are going over there, getting shot to heck, coming back all screwed up in the head and whatever. But this complicity, which automatically we say because we send our soldiers there, they are fighting for our freedom. Not true. Is anyone in Syria, are they against you? What are they doing to you? How about Yemen? I'll bet you not 1 in 1,000 people can pick Yemen out on a map. How many tanks from any other country in the Middle East are here on our soil bombing our cities? None. But we should glorify Memorial Day or those that have served instead of someone saying, hey, Mr. Government, you want me, let me see if I understand this. You want me to put on a uniform. You want to teach me how to shoot and kill. You're going to send me over to a country where I can't even find on the map. And then some jerk who's dumber than I am is going to tell me, go over there and shoot those people in that particular village. And that's a war hero? But we use Memorial Day. Once we use Memorial Day in this fashion, we justify any action. And we always see the pictures of the coffin and the flag over the coffin. My God!
Cheap shot.
You know, it's horrible. You know what? Anyone who does that, you know, any government official who starts promoting that really should rot in the hottest part of hell. Now, if we were here innocently minding our own business and we were fighting and people died defending this country, I'd say that picture would be appropriate. But you know that's not the case. Why do we feel so? They want us to feel so obligated. They want to justify their means. And how could you not justify it when these men are coming back with their arms and legs shot off, with their minds totally screwed up? And yet, no one would say that because they died for a cause. And they all say they died for the cause. What they did is they defended our country, so made the ultimate sacrifice so we would have our freedom. And what do we get? More government control. Let's take a break. Blind patriotism is the tool of the state. Glorifying Memorial Day is a tactic of the state to reinforce the requirement of popular obedience. Those are my words, folks. I didn't read them anywhere. What I find particularly upsetting is when I am speaking to someone who has sons and daughters, and they tell me how proud they are that they've joined the Marines or whatever, and they're being deployed to Afghanistan or Pakistan or wherever. I think to myself, as a parent, would you not have an obligation to at least inform them that we are not at war with Pakistan? We are not at war with Afghanistan. In fact, there is no war. And yet, the parents have to be so misinformed as to encourage their children to go overseas, risk their life and limb, literally life and limb, come back mutilated in the mind from what they've done in many cases. Sometimes they don't come back at all. And then we have to say, oh, we're proud of what he has done. Those parents, how do they feel? I mean, are they so ignorant that they have no idea what's going on? Do they really think we are at war? You see, folks, there is no such thing as a war on terror. The reason for the war on terror is that when the Soviet Union collapsed, we had no enemy. When a government has no enemy, it has little purpose. It has a very difficult time controlling the populace. What is it going to do? Sit there and say, everything's fine now, here's legislation? No, they can't. So they have to create a war of some sort or be engaged in a war so that they can justify everything that they do, the development of homeland security. Look what that's turned out to be. I mean, that's an army within the confines of the United States against the people of the United States. That was designed to control the people within the United States. They bought 1.6 billion rounds of hollow point bullets. I know guns, let me tell you something. You know what? The Geneva Convention outlaws hollow point bullets in warfare. But our Homeland Security buys hollow point bullets. You know, hollow point bullets are meant to do a lot of tissue damage. They're meant to kill. You don't practice with hollow point bullets. You know, we used up about 2 billion rounds of ammo, of rifle and handgun ammo during the war in Iraq. 2 billion. And in 1 year, Homeland Security buys 1.6 billion. Where's the outrage? Where are people saying, we got a problem? You see, this war on terror is a fantasy, and it's just meant to keep the industrial complexes going like crazy, keep the printing presses printing like crazy, keeping people employed in the manufacture of war, if you will, and to keep the economy going. Do you know if we stop this war, you know what would happen to all these countries or these companies that make war parts? I own an industrial health testing company. Whenever there's a slowdown in war, these places close up. They make parts. They make all different types of parts. They don't make like a tank, but they make plates for a tank, for example, or an armored car. They slow that down, these places go out of business. Our manufacturing go right down the tubes. And that's what we're going to talk about next. In fact, we're going to talk about a little bit about our economy and about our debt. And I have my research assistant here with me now. Now, Preston, what do you have to say about our debt so far?
Well, I've been monitoring our U.S. national debt clock, and I have taken some calculations or just written down some numbers before the show started, or right at 7 o'clock when the show started. And I'm just watching our debt climb and climb. And at the end, I'll let everyone know how much our debt has gone up in 1 hour.
Okay. All righty. Now, you know, folks, you cannot have a country survive while it's in debt. We continually to increase our debt. Our debt now is approaching $16.8 trillion.
Yeah,
That's the current. That's the current.
Trillion.
Yeah.
Correct.
What they don't include is the net, not the gross, but the net unfunded, which brings the debt up to, I understand now, I heard the other day, over $225 trillion. Folks, that is absolutely impossible to pay off. $225 trillion. $1 trillion is $1,000 billion. 225. The United States couldn't be sold for $225 trillion. If you look back, or I think back when I was young, there was no such thing as debt. No debt at all. In fact, I got some numbers here. This is fascinating. But when I was young, when my father went, I used to go to my father, look at cars, and we bought a car every once in a while. You know, he put so much money down, or he paid for it in cash, you know, and he had at max a 2-year car loan. And he owed, a few $100 or $1,000 left over. Today, we have car loans that are reaching, in some states, allowed 10 years. That's a mortgage. And now the government has these funding agencies, that give I guess they are mortgages, but give loans to people who want car loans, who want to buy cars, who cannot afford them and wouldn't qualify at a bank. And then the government guarantees the loans.
Secondary financing.
That's right. And these companies admit that the repossession rate will be as high as 25%. Now, you think the government doesn't know that? They know exactly what they're doing. We don't know what we're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. What they did to the mortgage market and what they're doing again to the mortgage market. By the way, they talk about the mortgage, mortgage rates are up 4%, 4.7%. Hallelujah. It's still down in the toilet. But my point being is that the reason why it's up is because people are getting money again free of charge. I mean, they're getting these loans guaranteed by Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which is now part of the federal government, which means you owe that money. They're not going to be able to pay these loans, but you will have to. Now they're doing that to cars. Back in the 1950s and 1960s, people had a car loan for a very short period of time, or they owned their car. Then all of a sudden, credit cards came out. The first credit card was Unicard. I remember Unicard back in 70 or something like that. And then people start using it. I remember when people first received credit cards, what they used to say is, I have a credit card, but I don't use it for everyday items. I just use it when I need to, an emergency or a special item. But my groceries and gasoline, I always pay cash. People used to say that. It was like they felt guilty they had a credit card. Well, what happened? Now, only 7% of the transactions that are made by individuals are made in cash. All the rest are on credit. Right? So now we have people. Yeah, we have people now who are in debt, and you know what they're doing? They're refinancing their debt. Well, then what happened? We came out with advertisements saying, "Hey, we know you can't refinance your debt anymore. We know you don't have any more money, but you have some equity in your home. How about refinancing your house?" And then they refinanced their house, paid off their mortgage, paid off their credit cards, and what do you think they did? They ran up their credit cards all over again, and now they had no equity in their homes. Then they came out with another set of ads saying, well, if you have a defined settlement plan, like an annuity, come to us, and we'll pay you cash now. The ad, it's my money and I want it now, or I need it now, right? That ad, right?
During daytime TV.
Yeah, right. You see it all the time, right? Well, that means if you had something like an insurance policy, which was a full life, where it had cash surrender value in it, then maybe $20,000. They're not going to give you $20,000. You're going to get $5,000 out of it. So they give you $5,000 so that you can pay the minimum due on your credit card, right? And then you're back and then you have nothing. Then what do they come out with? After they exhausted that to heck, then they said, have a home? Hey, how about a reverse mortgage?
There you go.
Yeah. In other words, people have no wealth today at all. There's no wealth in the individual. When we come back, we're going to talk about the individual debt, where employment is, where we're going. Now, understand that if you look at all the leading, lagging, and coincident economic indicators, those are the gross indicators that I mentioned, and has to do with manufacturing, supplies, all the stuff. It's really complicated. They are all expanding. Expanding. That's good that sounds like the economy is doing well. And in a sense, it is doing well. But the reason why it's doing well is not so good. Do we have to go now?
No, you got about a couple minutes if you like.
You want to cut now?
Well, I can cut now.
Yeah, why don't we cut now? When we come back, we'll continue that.
All right, let's do that.
Don't go away.
Here we go.
We talk about all the economic indicators, and that's the quantitative measure. What I'll take a look at is some of the qualitative measures. Let's take salaries, wages and salaries as a percent of gross domestic product. In 1968, salaries and wages, right, comprised of about 53.5% of gross domestic product. Today, it's less than 44%. Wages have gone up, folks, way up, and yet it's a smaller part of GDP, of gross domestic product. Average annual hours worked per employee was around 1,910 hours in 1970. It's 1,760 hours a year on average today. In other words, people are giving less hours to work. Manufacturing employment is down about 1/3 since 1979. 1/3, folks. Civilian employment population ratio That's the civilian. That what percent of the population is actually civilian, and not government, right? Was in 2000 was about 64.5%. Today it's 58.5%. Just think of that. Labor force participation in 2000 was a little over 67%. Today it's a little over 63%. The average or mean duration of unemployment in 1970 was about 8%. 2000 went to 13%. Today, 35%. Duration of unemployment. Isn't that amazing? Mm-hmm. Delinquency, no, I don't think that's percent. That must be weeks, right? 35 weeks. I'm sorry. I put down percent. I'm awfully sorry. 8 weeks to 13 weeks to 35 weeks. I stand corrected. Delinquency rate on residential mortgages in 2005 was 1.5%. Today it's over 10%. Wow, we're doing well there. New home sales in 2005 was 1.4 million. Today it has increased to all of 400,000. And that's because now we are giving free loans. We're giving government-backed loans again, which are not going to get paid.
You are depressing me.
Oh, what? It's horrible. Listen, consumer credit in 1950 was negligible. In fact, I saw a graph, and you had to get a magnifying glass to see how far off zero it was. Really, I mean, you need a magnifying glass. It was so little.
Yeah,
I'm not kidding.
I bet, yeah.
I could not figure it out. I was trying to figure out, what is it, 25? Yeah, I couldn't figure it out. Right? In 1980, it went to $400 billion, and today it's a mere $2.8 trillion.
Wow.
When did they invent trillion? Because I never heard about it until about 10 years ago. Trillion?
Yeah.
No one talked about a trillion 10 years
No,
ago.
No.
I mean, seriously. I mean, I thought maybe mathematicians or something. But when I was a kid, I heard billion. I thought, oh, my God.
Oh, yeah,
billion.
yeah.
Let's don't talk about
Right.
it. To be a millionaire, not, billionaire?
Yeah. But what's fascinating is that when Congress says, well, that program only cost $44 billion. Only 44
Yeah,
I mean, it's only. It's like,
Yeah.
that's a throwaway. Why don't you throw that out, and we'll use that. Yeah.
So if all these facts are true, how can they say that our economy is improving?
Well, it's not. The fact is that our economy improves because our productivity is the highest in the world. Our productivity is the highest in the world because our manufacturing, our output of what we produce is the highest and the best in the world. It really is. But it's because of our technology, our innovation, our marketing, all the things that the individuals do.
But if the balance is shifting from actual production of products to services,
No,
what's that?
it's not. Actually, we're producing about the same today as we ever have, if not a little bit more.
But what are we producing, Joe? We're producing weapons.
Well, yeah, we're producing a
portion.
lot of technical stuff that doesn't require. Well, a couple of weeks ago or last week, I talked about this company they had on television that made truck liners and floor mats for trucks and cars, right? Gigantic factory, all mechanized. They had like a half dozen employees, and they supply the world. But they only needed a handful of technical employees, by the way. You can't be a numbnut like unemployed without an education. Man, I want the job. I mean, you had to be a sharp cookie to run these machines, and you had to be disciplined and clean. And this factory was cleaner than a surgical operation room. It was unbelievable, But so we're producing more bed liners and more mats for cars, et cetera, with a fraction of the number of employees. And not only do we have a fraction of the employees, but we're producing more of it. You see, and this is, we go to, I used to be in plants all the time, and one time I went to a plant, and they were making these plates, metal plates, and there were tons of these metal plates. And I said, what are these plates for? They said, he says, this is a military contract. We're using these plates. They're putting them on the bottom of the Humvees, to protect them from the, IEDs. And so that's a military reason why manufacturing is doing well. But when military goes down, these places starve. Yep. We really have an inherent systemic problem. Let me go through a couple of them. The self-employment rate is only about 25% that of 1950. Now, when we talk about debt, our debt is $16.7 trillion. Current debt, that's just the current. Now, if I wrote my balance sheet out the way the government wrote their balance sheet out, I would be in the federal penitentiary. because I have to state what my long-term debt is, my short-term debt. The government says we just indicate our short-term debt, we discount all our long-term debt. Well, wait a minute. I mean, if I did that, I'm a multi-millionaire because I have no long-term debt. Well, the long-term debt is the thing that really kills you because that's the thing that's around your neck all the time. And it's usually a very, very large figure. Like I said, the long-term debt is over $225 trillion.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then when they say, well, we're going to save 30, we saved right now, this year, we're supposed to save,
Right.
35 billion. Look at the amount. It's so insignificant. We burn
it's
it up
minuscule.
in a couple of days. Worldwide debt is 80% of GDP, of worldwide GDP, which is very, very high. Right? They say at about 95%, you're in deep trouble. Right? We're at 106%. But wait, the first country to go is going to be Japan. Japan is 226%.
Oh, that'll affect everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That's going to pop. When
start
that
it.
pop, the bond market's going to go, and when the bond market's going to go, it's over, folks. You better head for Walmart or your supermarket and get the last container of milk. That's you better do that. You better be prepared
And that's
for
so
that.
true.
Yeah, it's going to be very, 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 very bad. So we have all these indicators, and then we have the debt. And then we say, like you say, people say, oh, things are getting better, things look good. The thing is, we're just much too comfortable, and we're too comfortable because we're printing lots of money to keep people comfortable. Once this money stops or slows down, then we're going to have a problem. And when people get upset is when the money stops coming in. Once the money stops coming in, all of a sudden, the ball game is over, right? And what do? We just go to war, right? That keeps us subservient to the government, right? And keeps the economy going. Now, we go from Libya to Yemen to Syria, and now we're opening bases and we're interfering in all the countries in South Africa, in Africa. You would think after a while someone would say, isn't this enough? I don't think Angola or any of those countries have attacked us yet. And yet we're going to make, when we need to, we will make, a martyr. I'm not a martyr, but we will create an enemy. Yeah. And then what do? We start that all over again. We have let me see. I think we have a call. Yeah, we have a call online too. Caller, you're on the air. Thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ.
Hey, Joe.
Hi.
Hey, I had a question about the critical mass in relation to IRS, and what I mean by that, to be specific, is what number of people that would actually say, enough is enough. You're not going to investigate yourself because we know you've been involved in criminal activity against us, and
Right.
we don't know how many years it's been, but it's been a lot of years. And having been audited a couple times, I know that the people that I was audited by was professional, but it was paperwork matters, but that's been corrected. And I was certainly going to be reconstructed as far as what they believed I owed if I didn't have my paperwork. So, having said that, would the same type approach be good to say that, you say you didn't know anything. Maybe we need to reconstruct what we believe you know and approach it that way and do an audit like they would do us as an audit.
Okay. What is your first name, please?
Lee.
Lee, I'm lost. I'm not sure I understand your point. And let me be honest with
Okay,
you.
maybe
because I'm just not smart enough to understand.
No,
it.
that's okay. I had a lot of things in one. Maybe I'll just approach it this way. What would it take, in your opinion, to have enough people that would make a difference if we voiced our disappointment with the way it's been resolved to try to get to the bottom of it?
Oh, you mean to restore our republic?
Yes, and maybe say, look, you've tried your way. Now let's do a flat tax. What's it going to take?
Right.
What number of people maybe backing it? You know, we probably have 50% that don't think critically enough to make a difference, but maybe we got 50% that does.
Yeah. The only way that I see any headway being made is if the states revolted against the central government. Like
Okay.
Texas, you know, and I applaud Texas because anytime something comes out, Texas says, no, go to hell, we're not doing it, you know. And once states start reinstating and reaffirming states' rights, then we may see a change. The only other way is if you have a total collapse, where everything's out of control, where the government can't control anything, and we're heading for a total collapse. You go on the internet, you know, it's just jammed with thoughts about how this place is going to collapse.
Right.
You
Do
know?
you think a lot of our problem relates to the dumbing down? I was a school teacher for about 5 years, and that's the average of how many years a school teacher lasts. But the critical thinking skills is probably the most important thing I see to a voting public, and to not take, Republican or Democrats, but be able to think for yourself and not be told by the media or Obama or somebody what to think.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's the foundation from which the government makes it plans everything. Is you got to keep and I think we're going to see a change in that regard, Lee, because the internet is allowing people to learn online, and I think slowly but surely we're going to see more people peeling off of weaning off of the central government school system and learning online and starting to think for themselves. And they will have choices. And once there is a choice in education, that's going to be the demise of the central school system. I think that is the core of all of our issues, the problem of all our issues. Absolutely.
And it appears they fight against charter schools and schools that actually achieve. A lot of them fight against it because they know, hey, they're teaching to think critically, and that might dissipate our ability to have power over it.
Absolutely, Lee. Lee, we got to go. We have to go for.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you very much for calling. Thank you for. We're gonna go for a break right now. We'll be right back. Don't go away. I have no idea. Believe it or not, I am more encouraged today than I ever have been. That sounds like crazy because when I talk, I sound like doomsday all the time. And the reason why I am is because of what actually occurred in Egypt. Remember the Arab Spring? Oh, yeah. And how did the Arab Spring? What permitted the Arab Spring to to percolate?
Social media.
Yeah, the social media. Information. What we have today is we have everybody, interacting with everyone else, not only within the United States, but all over the world. And so we have now a breakdown. We have a little breakdown of traditional institutions. That includes our education system. It includes our information systems, even television. I mean, let's face it, people watch television because they're numbnuts. They watch and they go numb, But where do they get the information from? They get on the internet, right? So what you're going to have this fracture all over, and it will somehow work out. And the reason why it'll work out is there is no leader. Now, the problem they had in Egypt was the fact that they were looking for a leader to crack down, but there was none. There were just these millions of people all hacked off, right, with a common cause. They were hacked off.
Right.
And that gives me reason for hope. We have right now, 6 companies that own all of the media on television. Yeah. We have...
That's astounding,
GE owns NBC. News Corp owns Fox. Disney, believe it or not, owns ABC, and it should be Disney World, Viacom owns BET and CMT and all Paramount Pictures and MTV. So, and it goes on and on and on. And there's an individual that does own CBS, and I forgot his name. But I don't want to say anything about him because I'm going to get in an argument about that. But he has an agenda.
And don't forget the guy that owns Fox. What's his name? The big. Lord, I can't think of his name right now.
I cannot either.
Oh gosh.
Fox. Where is Fox?
Fox News.
Oh, you mean, yeah, isn't that funny when you said that? It went out of my head, too.
I can't remember his name, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we have this closed media, and what happens is that now you have people getting on the internet, right, and they're producing what looks like professional broadcast, and they're just individuals working out of their home. Well, you can't compete against that, and that's the beauty of it. There is no leader. At one time, I thought it was imperative that this liberty movement have a strong leader, and we take all of these organizations and put them all in one pot, and we have this one for. And now I'm saying, no. Let it be individual by individual, little group here, little group there. There is no way to fight that.
It's just whoever's viral on the internet at the time.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's going to work to our advantage. Now, whether or not we ever get that far is another question. I think we will if we have a collapse.
Yeah.
We have a collapse. Then we really get together, and there's going to be no way that you can have the Homeland Security all over the place. It's not going to work. I think the government knows the ball game's over. I think they think the ball game is over at this point. I know.
Really?
Everyone's looking at me like I'm nuts. No, I mean, why do you think they have armored cars? And they want to give the impression that it's not. They want to give the impression that we are in control. When they realize that they are losing control, there are stations like this one, Liberty Talk Radio, on the air, with thousands and thousands of listeners, and you don't think that contributes to it? I mean, I'm not a spear leader or anything like that, or a spearhead for the whole thing, but I'm part of that. The thousands and thousands of thousands that are out there doing this. And that's where I see hope. I'd love to ask questions. The Murdoch, that's it. Thank you.
Rupert Murdoch.
Fine.
Yeah,
Thank
my
you. Goodness gracious.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
God.
I'm going to profess my ignorance. I know you think that everyone thinks I'm brilliant. I'm ignorant.
No.
Let me tell you what happened. I was reading and I was listening to the news about the occupied territory. And I said to myself, what is the occupied territory? I heard this for decades, the occupied territory, right? What's the occupied territory?
Yeah. What is it?
Does anyone know?
I really don't know.
I'll bet if we took the camera on the streets, and we just had to say, by the way, would you please define, when you hear on television, occupied territory, what are they talking about? Out of 10 people, how many people do you think would know?
Zero.
Yeah, I think zero. Absolutely. I said, how could it be that I do not know what that means? Now, let me ask you, anyone here, can anyone define what
I'm baffled with what it is.
Yeah, and they talk about the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights, and the West Bank, right? Now, that's just from memory. We hear this all the time. But we have no idea what that means. No idea.
Occupied by who? What?
That's right. Occupied by whom? And they never mention who's occupying it. Never. They never say, occupied territory,
That's
right?
amazing.
And what that is, that's Israel occupying territory that belongs to another country.
Oh.
The Golan Heights, guess what, folks, belongs to Syria.
Oh, there's still
Now, there's a long story. Now, part of it, they've made into a sort of like a DMZ zone and everything. And they have what is called the UNDOF group. UNDOF, UNDOF. Now, listen to this. Listen. It's called the United Nations Disengagement Observer Force. And what that is, you never hear this. You never hear that. I'm not making this up.
Why don't you just say that instead?
They are at the Golan Heights to sort of be the buffer between Syria and Israel going to war. But actually, the Golan Heights belongs to Syria, of which Syria has agreed, and it's very complicated, but they have agreed to say, okay, we'll draw the line here within the Golan Heights on our territory and call that the DMZ. And then these troops will come in. But what the Israelis do is they keep on going into these territories, which occupied by them, but doesn't belong to them. But they never mention that. They never mention that the United Nations has condemned Israel for occupying land that doesn't belong to them. We just sit out and say, the occupied territories. It sounds clean, doesn't it? It sounds so antiseptic.
Yeah, we really do.
The occupied, the Israel's in the occupied territory. You have no idea what the hell. No one knows no one. I didn't know. I had to look it up. and it's very complicated. I'm not going to simplify it. It's very but it shouldn't be, because it is territory that was not allotted to Israel back in 1948. You see, Israel did not exist before 1948, not as a country. In fact, a vast majority of the Jews in Palestine wanted to stay Palestinian. They wanted to remain Palestinian Jews. And they were smart. They said, if we don't stay Palestinian Jews, we'll be at war forever. But the Zionist, which is a different fraction altogether, and you don't have to be Jew to be a Zionist, and the bankers, they decided they're going to have their own state. They snookered the English, basically, to start their own state. It started to be very small, and it kept on expanding and expanding until they actually had controlled the whole area. Do you know you cannot find a map any longer in the United States that says Palestine? I went to the bookstore, and I went through dozens of books to find a book about that area. I found one book. It was called Palestine Complete, and it had actually that area designated as Palestine back in 1948. But you'll never see a map saying this used to be Palestine. It almost sounds like, it was always Israel. It's always about. But the Jews say, well, it's the Holy Land. It's all that stuff. Here we go with religion. Now I go back to the beginning of our broadcast is when we bring religion in with everything else, and you go, all right, it's war game's over.
They say Palestine in the back of my Bible map.
They do.
In the Bible map.
In the Bible, all right. In the Bible, they do. But no one reads the Bible. You know that.
Well, it does.
But you understand, folks. All right, folks. I guess this is almost the end of today's podcast.
Yeah, my gosh, time has gone fast.
Well, folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. To do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this is what this program was all about. I'll see you next week.